joining us on the Nikki Medoro Show. I'm Nikki Medoro. She is Kim McAllister. And thank you all for being here on a Thursday night with our cocktails. Look at what Kim McAllister is drinking on this Thursday evening.
I have
She's
two
double
strawberry
fisting it.
margaritas there. I am. I'm almost done with the first one. I've only had 2 cold headaches so far. I'm drinking it a little fast, but
I swear, I'm so
in my
proud. I'm
defense,
so
these
proud.
margarita glasses are super, super tiny. So it's like a little bite-sized margarita.
See, her tolerance has been growing during our cocktails and news every Thursday night.
This is what happens when I started hanging out with Nikki Medoro. All of a sudden, I got 2 drinks now instead of 1.
Every Thursday night, we're building up that tolerance.
Girl.
Oh, I love it. All right, hit that subscribe button. Thank you all for being here as always. I know, right? Get it, Kimmy. Please tell your friends about the show, and thank you for all the support. The super chat and super stickers are always here, so you can throw those in. We read your comments live on the show, and we always read them after if you watch us on the recording as well. And of course, you can find all the ways to support us. PayPal, Patreon, it's all in the notes right underneath here on the YouTube. But thanks for being here. Real quickly, Dylan did an amazing job at his play last weekend. So thank you all for all the good juju that he gave. I did not get permission to show it on the show. So as a good mom with social media, I am not showing any videos, but you know, Kim and I were talking about this before I came on. I hope he continues it in high school because there is nothing, I don't know what it is. Those of you that aren't parents or those of you that are, it's not like I'm on stage, but it is like you're on stage. You know, it is just a part of you up there and you're just so proud. So I was very, very proud of my son. It was his first lead role. He's never done anything like it. And yeah, he had a ball. So it was, 2 shows after months of practice didn't seem like enough, but he had a great time. So thanks for everybody.
Big deal when you're a lead. That's a lot to remember. It's a lot of responsibility.
Yes. And he was singing, a lot of pressure. And it wasn't just acting, it was singing. And he's never had singing training. So yeah, anyways, it was great times. And so now we're just going full steam ahead to the end of 8th grade. And then I will no longer have middle schoolers. I'm just going to have high school kids and just, yeah. So there it is. There it begins. So yeah, it's been a lot, but yeah, you guys have been with me and Kim through this whole thing. And so I love you guys so very much. So it's been great. And on that note, talking about children, I mean, who would have thought that Donald Trump was the fertilization president, but he wants more babies. They want
the way you said that really grossed me out. I can just imagine his seed flying everywhere.
It is so gross. Yeah, the White House is fielding proposals aimed at getting you, dear women, to marry and have children. So much so that one idea is to pay you $5,000, a baby bonus, if you will, to every American mother after she gives birth. Now, that's just an idea. It's not, set in stone. This is not anything that's definitely going to happen because they're saying that the birth rate slightly, very, very slightly declined last year, except among Hispanic women. But apparently that's not who they're talking about. The overall birth rate did decline slightly. It was like 11 live births per 1,000 people. Okay. Do you know that in 1960, it was like 23, right? Or something like that. It was like 23. What was it? It was 24 if you round up. 24 live births per 1,000 people. But I mean, think about the 50s and 60s.
What was it last year?
11.
Oh. Listen, we're busy. Women are
busy. We're
not
just busy.
We're in college.
It's effing expensive.
We've decided to have a career. No one can afford a house. There's 2 people working instead of 1 in order just to make it. Even then, you can hardly make it. And you want to give women a pittance of $5,000?
$5,000?
Please, how offensive is that? You know what you can do with your $5,000? You can take that and your baby and shove it where the sun don't shine.
You know how quickly you're going to get through $5,000? Exactly. All right. Let me know in the comments, those of you that have kids or even those that are thinking about kids or didn't have kids. What made you make your decision? Okay. What made you make your decision? So for me, And my husband,
Mhm.
and I hate saying this because she's within earshot. My daughter, my firstborn, was not in any way, shape, or form a mistake, but we did not plan her. Like we weren't like, let's try for a baby. I
Mhm.
just I just found out I was pregnant. Okay. Like,
Were you already married at the time?
of course. We had been
Okay.
married
Well,
for
of course, it's not necessarily a done deal.
we were married for 4 years. 4
Okay.
years. And like, I mean, it was so much so that my mother was like, yo, are we gonna start
Why
having
were you
children?
why were you waiting? Was it just you were busy with careers
Well,
and
we were just having I mean, we were having a ball. Like,
Mhm.
we had fun. We had bought our house. We had just bought our house when and then I got pregnant.
Mhm.
Um, which of course, right? But we were just having fun. We were married. I moved to Sacramento. We just were having a really, really good time. And then all of a sudden, it just I'm like, something wasn't coming. And I found out that I was pregnant. So it was one of those things. Dylan, my second born, we did make a decision to have him. We're like, okay, it's time. We wanted our kids a certain, distance apart age wise. And so we
Mhm.
did plan that. She gets all sensitive about it. Like, she was not a mistake. She just wasn't planned.
Sure.
But it wasn't like I was like doing the math, right? I think if you ever do math, no one's going to have children. Children are an expense that you cannot budget for because you don't know what you don't know.
No.
You can have a kid that has the most expensive hobbies in the entire world.
Horseback riding, bassoon,
Exactly, right? You never
rowing.
ever
Yeah.
know.
Mhm.
Exactly. And again, kids are expensive. They say babies are expensive, the diapers, all the things that come with it. They only get exponentially more expensive.
No, you've seen those studies that show how much it costs from birth to 18 or birth through
Oh,
college to
yeah.
pay for a child $5,000. Laughable. You know what? That won't even cover summer camp, pal. That's
Oh
it.
God, no. Oh God, no. Not even daycare, right? If you are
Mhm.
working. But
Here's a
again,
couple
go ahead.
couple of chats. Lori says overpopulation and cost of living are decreasing the birth
Ding
rate.
ding. Ding
Rhonda
ding.
said she promised her husband 2. It looks like she kept good on her end of that
There you
bargain.
go. There you
Sandy didn't
go.
want kids because motherhood seemed miserable to me. Plus, I never wanted to experience pregnancy or childbirth. I hear you, Sandy. It's not
Yeah,
all a bed of
exactly.
roses. You couldn't pay me any amount of money to have a kid, says Heather. Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Some people knew from when they were little. Always I always thought the idea of having a baby seemed gross, but something clicked in me in
Yeah.
my 20s and I knew I wanted to be a mom and then had trouble and so had IVF and had it 4 times, was successful twice. So to say my babies were wanted is an understatement.
Right.
But I will say that everybody has a different opinion and to say that $5,000 is having a baby is about the want of having a baby, is
Right. Not the
about
money.
the emotional need, not the money. And while you have concerns, do you have a home? Do you have a safe place for them to live? Do you have enough of
Right.
an income to be able to get them medical insurance, to feed them, to take care of
Exactly.
them? You have all those concerns. So I'm not saying finances don't play a role in it, but there's, as they say, never a good time to have a baby. So if you want one, you just got to go ahead and go for it, right?
Yes,
And your
exactly.
$5,000 does nothing. Absolutely nothing. If you want
Absolutely nothing.
to affect policy that is supportive of women having children, how about this? How about
Mm.
look toward countries like Finland and Sweden, where they give you a baby box the minute you have a baby filled with all the things you need. They give you what, more than a year and a half off to
Exactly.
bond with your baby. Then they make it easy for you to go back into the workforce. Then, once you go back into the workforce, there's childcare, all kinds of benefits for you. Here, it's a crowd toss up whether you'll go back into the workforce. And when you do, are you even going to make enough money to make it
Mm.
worth your while? Because if 89% of your paycheck is going to childcare, what's the point?
Exactly. I mean, the Trump administration, and I will add in Republicans, are talking out both sides of their mouths,
Mhm.
right? It's like they want to cut all of these programs. Literally, we mentioned last night, the First Start program, right? The Healthy Start program. They
Yep.
want to gut that program, and yet they want us to have more children. What they're actually saying by doing both of these things and saying both of these things is they want women to stay home, right?
Mhm.
I mean, that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
They're not asking men to do this.
No.
Women are the ones that bear the children. So if we're having all of these babies and yet not creating the programs in which we can go back to work,
Mhm.
i.e., paid family leave, free daycare, expanding all of these programs, then guess who stays home barefoot, pregnant, and in the kitchen? Because we're making America great again, back into the 1950s that Donald Trump's obsessed with, right? So that's the idea. I can only think that they're imagining. And screw you. We did not fight all of these decades to get this equality, to get this place in the workforce, to be able to have both, right? To
Mhm.
have the choice to have both, right? If you want to stay home, and believe me, I love the fact that I'm able to work and again, work closer to home, that I could be there for my children
Yep.
because I do find importance in it. I'm not saying it's not important, but I also like to work as well. I like to be me and also a mom. There are two things that I like to do.
I guess the thing that's most offensive about it to me, and we can talk about the racism of what this policy really means and what kind of babies they're really looking for, white babies. But the most offensive thing to me is that we in general, the people that want to become mothers, do it for a reason that has nothing to do with money. I can't imagine any woman saying, I wasn't going to have a baby until you offered me five
Right.
grand. Right?
Exactly.
That's
Right.
not it's and who would want to have a mother that only did it for $5,000?
Right.
It's that's so wrong on so many levels. It is just morally and ethically wrong. So to say you're gonna pay a woman to have a baby is it's icky. It's icky to me. Yeah.
Well, and I know that you mentioned the whole white baby thing, but
Mhm.
let me just throw this out there. I mean, how would they control that though? Right. I mean, without being totally racist with the whole entire
Right.
thing. Right.
Yeah.
So if you put out a blanket statement that says you have a baby, you get $5,000, um, everybody gets it. Right. And I'm not saying that everybody, I would assume that if you did it, as icky as it sounds, Kim, there will be people that would take advantage of it. I cannot imagine people actually thinking that that $5,000 is gonna go far. And you have to be pregnant for 9 months. It's not as if you could just fart out a bunch of babies really, really quickly. I mean, what it would do, not only to your body, but then you still have to care for these babies. And the fear of the abandonment or the abuse or the welfare of these children,
Right.
right? I mean, if you're not providing the services for these kids on the other side, because again, they like to be pro
No.
pregnancy, but once the kid's on the other side, what are we doing? Are we taking care of these
No.
people? No, 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 right?
No,
Um,
you see it even in Oakland where they're providing, seed money for college, right? Or in California where they tried to make sure that no child goes without health care. These
right,
are not things that the MAGA folks are interested in. They don't care what happens once you have the baby. They
right,
just want you to have the baby. Once you have the baby, they don't care if it starves. They don't care if it gets medical care. I mean, look at all the cuts to Medicaid across the country. They don't care if you take care of the baby. Once you have the baby, luck of the draw, whoever your parents are. We gave you 5 grand to populate the planet. And we know Trump likes the uneducated. So he
right.
probably just wants the poor people to have the more babies that are more of a voter base for stupid voters to vote in people like him. Oh God, I need another drink.
Oh, that's funny that you say that because Yvonne's like, Kim, love the 2-drink minimum. Cheers, everyone. Just got out of the garden. And Flo, thank you so much for the $5 donation. Big congratulations to Dylan. As a theater artist and educator, always happy for good news in the arts. What was his play and role? It was actually called 13 Junior. And his role, he was the lead role. Evan Goldman. I always say Goldberg, but I think it's Goldman. And so, yeah, he was the lead role in it. He was this Jewish kid that moved to Indiana from New York. But yes, thank you very much for the donation. And he had a ball. It was great. Here's another question, though, going back to the $5,000 donation. I can also imagine lawsuits. What about the $5,000 for people that don't want children or can't have children? Right. Now, all of a sudden, people are getting even more incentives, right? The child tax credit, right? I don't get a tax credit if I don't have children. Why don't I get all of these benefits? People that are married get benefits. What if I'm not married? People now that have children get huge benefits. What if I can't or don't want children? Right? It seems to me to be
other discriminatory.
Right. Yeah. And if you don't fit into this, I could start seeing people being like, yo, what about me? Like, when do I start getting some of these benefits that all of these other people have simply because they're married or they have children or fill in the blank? And it's expensive to be a single childless person sometimes in the United States, doing it all on your own when you think of it that way.
I have a question. I thought, and maybe this is just when I was, coming of fertility age or whatever, childbearing age, but I thought it was bad to have a bunch of kids because we have an overpopulated planet. There's pollution. There's too many of us. By the year such and such, we're going to have, no space. We're going to be living on top of each other. It's going to be horrible. What happened to that? And now they're paying us to have babies. And also, and furthermore, and one more thing.
Definitely had to. Okay, go ahead.
Doesn't it smack of China? When the government tries to stick their fingers in your decision making and tell you how many kids you can and can't have, and
well, at least they're not talking about the gender or the sex of the child, I should say. You know what I mean?
Not like China, where you couldn't have more than, however was it, 2 babies, 1 baby, or you would get fined if you had more, or they would come take your kid away in the middle of the night, whatever. But like, stay out of my baby making decisions. Just
stay out of my house.
Stay out of my fertility. Stay out of my fertility. If I want to have 5 kids, great. If I want to have none and 2 abortions, great. Guess what? My choice. Leave me alone. It's my deal. It turns out that I was on your page, Trump. I was looking to have kids and I tried really hard. But what business is it of anyone else's? It's my decision. In the chat, there are some people. Heather said the only way I would have a baby in me is if I ate one. Great. Your choice. I love her.
Get in my belly.
Her absolute choice, and different than my choice. And that is what makes this a great place to live. And the government has no right to stick their fingers in my decision-making process. So once again, I can tell them to stick it where the sun don't shine.
Exactly. And this is the Republican Party here, the party of smaller government, except when it comes to these huge decisions, right? It's crazy. Sandy says, I sometimes envy married people just because they don't have to do everything on their own like I do. Exactly. And Heather says, give me a stipend for not cramming the landfills with disposable diapers and expired car seats. Exactly. It's crazy.
If anything,
think about
Heather's
that.
Contributing more to the United States of America than I am. She probably pays more in taxes.
Exactly.
For sure, she's a more productive worker. Sometimes she can't even listen to the shows and she has to go work in the lab. I mean, the horror. Yes. So, I mean, she's a better American than I am.
Well, I feel like this idea of having babies, one, I know what we're saying about the whole white aspect of it, but again, they can't control that. But I do feel there is this whole back to this traditional American quote unquote family, and it's sexist and it's backwards. And I don't believe that most Americans want to go back to that as the norm. If you want to, fine. If you want to have the husband work outside the home and the wife stay home with the kids, more power to you. I just want people to be free to make that choice and be able to afford it. I want people to be able to afford working outside the home or staying. Like, I want all of those things. I want the option for men and women to do it. That's what I want.
John Slade says, when it comes to private parts, the right wing wants total control, unless it's a penis, in which case you have control of it.
Exactly.
Anything located on a woman, no, they want complete control of that. But
Absolutely.
John, I get what you're saying.
Exactly. And again, they have to make the world safer. I mean, besides the fact of paid parental leave and all that, it's depressing out there. School shootings and all these things. How about we make the world, especially this country, maybe not as a depressing place to put kids into, right?
Thank you.
I don't want to turn on the news all the time and be so depressed. I can imagine why younger generations are like, I don't know if I want to have children, right? I mean, I'm worried that in 20 or 30 years, I'm worried the planet will even be here when we're talking about climate change and coral bleaching. And come on, it's hard out there, And so I can also imagine, as connected to the news and the headlines as we are, unfortunately, some of these younger 20-something people, 30-something people might be rethinking the idea of not only is it expensive, but morally, should I be bringing children into a world that is dangerous, that, environmentally might not be safe? Is that something I want to do? And I'm not saying don't do it, but it's a hard question to ask yourself. So I don't blame them for having a bit of pause to that. So,
it's about, if we really care about kids, why don't we protect the ones that are here?
Exactly. You know what I mean? So it's just crazy. You put a story in, speaking of, the traditional family, about this. And it's this idea of submitting. And there's a whole religious undertone. I mean, really, it's just completely religious about the whole entire thing. And I find it kind of not funny, but semi-parallel. The Pope has passed away. And obviously Catholics and women in the Catholic Church is always been a big thing. But this woman is not Catholic. She's like evangelical or whatever. But she had quite the message to the world, or the United States specifically, regarding men and women, right, Kim?
This lady is crazy. Her name is Pastor Paula White Kane. And she says, hey, ladies, it's not hard to submit to your husband, okay?
And she doesn't mean the sexy kind, okay, guys?
This is what we should be doing. We should be, says Paula, submitting to our husband. It's not hard to do. And this is, I guess, what we need to do. Men are becoming the bedrock of the church, which she says this is how God designed it. Interesting that she's a senior advisor for President Trump's White House faith office. This is who we're dealing with here.
And it's a newly created thing because we wanted to be efficient, but we had to create this thing for Donald Trump, which I don't understand.
Paula says that men were created, God designed men to be leaders of a household.
I also love the fact that Paula is on her third husband. So I don't know if she submits very well.
God, she says, is moving mightily. And that's what's so exciting to me. It's especially among young people and men. Men are the fastest returning to the church. Men, we need more fathers, more husbands, more real men.
Real men? What does that mean?
The bedrock. This is how God designed it. Nearly 2/3 of young women that were interviewed in a study last year that was done on the Center of American Life found that church membership was declining among young women in the United States. Gee,
I wonder why.
Wonder why. Yeah. They said they didn't feel that in the church they were treated as equals to men.
They aren't.
No, because, and this is one of the reasons. I know you guys know how I feel about religions. One of the reasons my kids aren't baptized, neither am I, is because I believe, this is my belief, my personal belief, is that religion was created to hold certain people down. In that vein, I believe women are oppressed by religion. In every religion you look at, there are rules that hold women down and keep them back and tell them they're not equal to men, they're not as important as men. No, thank you. I don't want my children raised with that belief.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, obviously all of you know I'm not a good Catholic. I was baptized. My children are baptized. I'm not a practicing Catholic, but I was definitely raised in the Catholic Church, went to Catholic school my entire life. But I agree with you. But I have a more different kind of view about women. I believe it's a systemic, obviously, it's semi like yours. They hold women down because I do believe that women had a lot of power in the beginning. And they wrote the Bible to hide the fact that women had more power. And that's why you don't see women in power. It was done purposely because women have a lot of power. Why do you think? Why do you think that we are the ones that actually birth the children and all of these things? If you believe in kind of the higher power and all that sort of stuff, I don't want to get into a religious thing, but I do believe that, at the beginning, there was a huge decision among men to hide the fact that the women were the powerful ones. I do. But it is what it is. And that's why we find ourselves in a lot of the situations in which we find ourselves in. Not hating on men here, but just saying.
I don't think I'm going to be submitting anytime soon, Paula. However, you had a little more information about Paula.
That she's on her third husband?
Oh, was that it? I thought she was some kind of scam artist.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah. She is. Okay, so not only that. So she's this right-wing influencer. So she has faced backlash because she was part of this mega church called Without Walls International. Surprise, surprise. She used, allegedly, tax-exempt funds to pay her family members millions of dollars in salaries. Okay. Even a right-wing influencer by the name of John Root told this news site he was concerned about this woman's involvement in the White House. He said, anybody that holds true to strong biblical conviction and discernment would not be involved with this woman. She is 100% a false teacher. So
and she is a senior
right-wing wackadoo is saying that, and of course, a grifter faith leader is the faith leader of the grifter in chief. Of course, of course she is. So look at her; she looks like a grifter. I'm sorry, like whatever. Yeah, I just these people that. And I understand that some people love their mega churches. I personally think that mega churches are the wrong way to go. I feel like they use that big sense of community to hide a lot of BS. Okay. And that's my own personal belief. If you like it, good on you. If it does something for you, fine. But I see a line of mega church and big money and scam. I just do. Maybe it's the news person in me that we just cover it all the time. And it just seems to be that way. So, but you guys do you. Believe what you want to believe. Do what you want to do.
Teacher Lori always teaching me something. Orthodox Jews, she says, start the day with a prayer. Thank God I'm not a woman. You are only Jewish by blood if your mother is Jewish, because you always know who the mother is. Most religions, she writes, are patriarchal. Yeah.
I mean,
my point.
But I think by choice and I think by design. Teacher, and that was kind of my point, especially the Catholics, in my opinion. And
Vilma, who I think is we've had a discussion before. She's fairly religious, I think. I'm sorry if I'm putting words in your mouth, Vilma, but she says you don't have to agree with their beliefs. I believe in the faith, but it's up to me to believe in my worth. My argument with that is, if you're being told by the church, if the message by the church is you're less than, women are less than, especially if you grow up that way, then you grow up believing that it's your job to submit, or that somehow you came from a man because I don't know, for his pleasure or whatever. I don't know.
I mean, religion has always been used, well, I think, for good and for control, right? I mean, if you can get people to believe in something, you can get them to do a lot of things, right? I mean, there have been wars that have been fought over religion. I mean, to this day. Okay. So and it's insane if you really think about it, right? So, it's just one of those things where I leave everyone to have their own beliefs. I believe I am a good person. My religion is do unto others as they do unto you. And the way I practice is a Catholic way, because that's how I was raised.
And there's no saying that you can't have spirituality or have your own relationship with God, but avoid an organized religion or a church where they have their hand out. Case in point, Cameo says the Church of Cameo is opening soon. Only $5,000 to get your golden heaven pass. There you go.
Not giving it for having a baby. Just give it to Cameo. Okay.
That's right.
There you go. I don't know. I just think that, and also anybody that tells you to submit to anybody, right, is just full of crap. I'm sorry. It's just, and also any religion that teaches you to hate or leave anybody out or exclude anyone is no religion for me. Okay. And that was also another problem that I had, with the Catholic Church. I just did. And so I cannot deal with hypocrisy. And that leads me to the next topic that I wanted to talk about, that I'm really wanting your guys' opinion on, because I'm a bit torn on this. Okay. I don't know how I feel. Okay. Because I've been mulling this, because sometimes there isn't a good solution, right? Sometimes you just have to friggin' compromise. Sometimes you wish that people would just suck it up, buttercup, and stop being an a-hole and just, if you don't like it, then just homeschool your effing kids, right? But the Supreme Court is going to be taking up this Maryland case, okay? Signal their support for the religious parents of this Maryland case who want to remove their children from, and I'm going to emphasize this, elementary school classes. So elementary school is what? K through 5th or K through 6th, right? Okay. Now these are using storybooks with LGBTQ characters. I am so yawn about this. I just feel like, are we still arguing about this? But this is annoying. Okay, I know it's dumb. Okay.
When does it get to the point where it doesn't matter whether there's 2 wives in a book or a wife and a husband in a book? Like,
exactly. It does. And again, the teacher may be gay. And that's what boggles my mind. But anyways, okay. So the court seemed to find that the Montgomery County school system could not require elementary school children to sit through lessons involving the books if parents expressed religious objections to the materials. See, what was happening was this: the parents wanted to opt out. They were saying, okay, fine. If you want to read these books, I just want my kids to opt out of this. They have to learn something while you're reading this book. And the school was basically saying, you know what? It's too disruptive to keep opting your kid out of every book that we're going to read. They have to sit through it. And if you don't want to have your kids sit through it, then basically homeschool your kid. This is the lesson. This is the lesson plan. They're going to have to listen to the book. They're also making an argument, the religious families, of, hey, if I can opt my kid out of sex ed, right, which happens obviously in later, I should be able to opt my kid out of this too. The reason why I'm torn on it is I do believe in opting out, right? I've said that before. I've said, if you don't want your kid, specifically your kid, then fine, don't have your kid do that. I feel like but you can't mold, and then I'm torn, because you can't mold an entire public school curriculum around everybody's, BS, So I'm torn on this. I'm really like, are we dying on this hill? Are we dying on the opt-out hill? Can we just let these kids stand up, walk out? Is it that disruptive? Is it really that disruptive? Truly. And I don't know. How do you guys feel? That I'm just really, I am siding with the school. I do feel like it's total BS, but at the same time, we do let kids opt out of sex ed. And is it really that? And we do it every single year. And I'm sure there are kids every single class that opt their kids out of it. And is it really that disruptive? I don't know. I'm not in the class.
I love what Vanessa says. What'll be next? Opting your kid out of having a gay teacher? Like, do you get to, how many, how big of a decision making do you want in your kid's education? Listen, if you want this, If you want to have complete control over what your child learns,
Mhm.
then look at a private school, look at their curriculum and decide this is what you want.
But it's money, and then that's taking them
Mhm.
away from a public
Well,
education, and they can't afford it, right?
great.
I
Well, then I
mean,
guess you don't have the choice because you have to take the public school, and this is what public school teaches. And if you don't like it, run for school board so you can help make the decisions.
ugh, I don't want them on the school board. Teacher Lori says it's not. It's fine. Send them to another class with a packet. I had parents who asked me to send their kids out during reading of Harry Potter and Cirque du Freak because they're not Christian. Not a problem. So Teacher Lori doesn't think it's that big of a deal.
So the school district is arguing that there's a lot of people, I guess, opting out of this type of stuff. I don't know if they live in an ultra red district or what, but they don't have the staff members to then babysit all the kids that are opting out. And so it becomes disruptive. It becomes an extra cost for the school.
Right.
You know what's
Right.
interesting about this? I recently opted out of something. I
Ooh,
had
what did you opt
to
out of?
opt out. In ninth grade, you have in Petaluma City Schools, you had only 2 choices for electives, and you had a requirement that you had to take human interaction.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Julia is desperate to take band and desperate to take broadcast journalism.
Yay.
But what right, both great options, but she couldn't because she had to fill one of the slots for the electives with this human interaction. So she said, "Mom, I can take these other 2 classes that I really want to take if you opt me out of sex ed." And I said, "Well, I will do that if you and I can sit down and I make sure that you know all the options and how not to get pregnant and everything else."
Right.
But she had sex ed in 5th grade, in 6th grade,
Yeah. Is
in
that
junior
yeah,
high.
like how many
We were very open and talk about things.
yes.
I don't think there's anything she's missing out on per
What do
se.
they talk about in high school that they haven't already gone over?
I mean,
Is
probably
it
hit
just
it
a
home.
refresher?
I think so, and maybe they tell you more about what they didn't think you were old enough to learn before, like,
I don't know.
maybe how
Marley's
to
was pretty
put on a condom and how
Marley's
to
went over that.
get
I
yeah.
feel like they went over that. I
I
did the
feel like she
Stanford one
had
with Marley, like
yeah, I feel like she had enough, and so I opted out.
okay.
But if I hadn't had the option to opt out, it's not like I would have been the one suing. Fine, everyone has to take it, everyone has to take it. It's okay.
Right.
Right
Yeah.
now, Jacob is undergoing they call it the, he calls it he gets in the car and he goes, "Mom, today it was the sex talk." Okay, yeah,
Ah,
so he's, like, doing it right now. Whatever, and they also talk about transgender in 5th grade. They tell the kids all the different kinds of different types of
gender
sexualities. It's
identities, yes.
fine. Whatever.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
wanna limit your I don't wanna limit your knowledge just because learning about something in somebody's mind could make you that thing. No, it
yeah.
couldn't. No.
Harry has a good point though. What can they talk about in high school that they probably haven't already seen online?
Exactly.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And that's what I always
Mhm.
think. These kids have seen, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, a lot of shit. Sorry. Like a
Yeah.
lot. And I try to shield my kids, and I tell my kids always, you have to limit yourself. You have to because the phone is the world, right?
Yeah.
And so the things that you put in your mind are going to stay there. It's going to stay there. I purposely don't look at stuff. I remember vividly. God, I must have been like 18 or 19 and I was with a bunch of my friends and they looked at some nasty videos. And there is one particular video that is seared in my mind. I could see it to this day.
Oh, no, get
And
it
it
out
is
of
a
your brain.
disgusting video
Oh,
and I can never not see it. And that's what
yeah,
I always tell my kids. I'm like, there are some things you can't unsee.
yeah,
And so I wish that I never saw it. And you know what I mean?
yeah,
So just
mhm.
don't look at stuff. You don't have to see everything in this world just because you can. So it's not everything's you want it's gross. Like you don't have to see everything in this world just because you can. It's disgusting.
It
So yeah.
it looks like the court in this case, the Supreme Court, I believe, is leaning toward the parents in this case and the opt-out.
Yes,
Yeah, mhm,
exactly. I mean,
mhm.
and that's the whole thing. It's like and they're basically saying, "Are you gonna die on this opt-out hill?" And I And that's why I'm kind of torn on it. Is this the one that we're going to die on? Is the opt out? Because opting out seems to be the lesser of two evils here versus not allowing these books at all. Because we have this whole book ban, right? I'd rather at least have the books. Does that make sense? I want the book versus, all right, fine, opt your frigging kid out, right? Like that's the lesser of two evils, in my opinion.
I understand the lady that sued in this case. So she's got an 11-year-old, same age as my kid. Hers is a daughter, and the daughter has Down syndrome. Okay. So not maybe as emotionally mature. And she said that learning about, that reading of this book with the, I don't know, same-sex characters or LGBTQ characters or whatever have you would confuse her daughter. Okay. Maybe it would. And so she wanted to opt out. I don't know why you can't just at the end of the day when your daughter comes home and she's confused and the book has been read in class because they send a note home, just say, yeah, sometimes there's two moms and sometimes there's two dads and sometimes there's a mom and a dad. Period. End of sentence.
She's in a world with gay people. Like, you should probably explain it because this is the world she lives in. It's not as if she's not going to encounter gay people in her life. You can't shield children from things that they're going to encounter that are absolutely fine. It's not like shielding your children from violent video games. These are just people. You know what I mean? Like it's so asinine that I'm ashamed that we even have to explain it that way. It's embarrassing that she's like, my Down syndrome child won't understand that gay people exist. Are you freaking kidding me right now? Explain that people exist. Sorry. But if opting out is the lesser of two evils, then fine. That's why I was kind of torn on it. I don't like it, but if that's what it takes to keep the books, then that's what it takes to keep the books. So that's why I was kind of like, but anyways. Okay, let's move on to the next story, which is kind of something that I'm excited about. I'm actually excited about someone leaving the Democratic Party. And friggin' finally, an old guy has read the room and is leaving. And it's Dick Durbin. I am so happy. And some people are like, oh my God, he's the number 2 Democrat. He's 80 friggin' years old. Okay. We've been talking, we talked about it last week. We've been talking about it a while. And even Gavin Newsom gave this interview with The Hill about he doesn't know what the Democratic Party is. And I actually agree with Newsom on this. I think we are in the midst of kind of this identity crisis. We're regrouping a bit. He's a bit harsh on the Democratic Party. But I think, maybe we do need a little bit of a spanking of let's get it together. Let's figure it out. I think Newsom likes to put himself on a bit of a pedestal, like nobody's called me. He actually said that. He's like, nobody has called me to talk about what the Democratic Party is. And I'm like, okay, dude, I understand that we're California. We're now the 4th largest economy in the world. You are the governor. Let's tamp down the ego a little bit. But I think Dick Durbin is making an actual bigger statement by stepping down. He was on MSNBC. I'm going to play a little bit of this video. And he was asked, is this making room? Is it because of the age? And I love what he says about the question regarding his age. Here he is.
Well, I think it's more complex. It is not just a question of a number, what your age is. Look at Bernie Sanders, for God's sake, still drawing thousands and thousands of people out for rallies, and he's a few years older than I am. The bottom line is, are you competent? Can you still do the job? That's the question the voters should ask. But should a new generation be interested in public service? You bet. I've spent my time in office trying to encourage younger people to get involved.
Senator Durbin, it's Ali Vitale. I wonder if I can pick up on something you just said, this idea of, are you competent? Are you able to do this job in the Senate? As you see this push from the grassroots that Lemire is talking about here, do you think enough of your colleagues are asking themselves those fundamental questions about if they can continue to serve?
I think so. I think if you're honest about yourself and your reputation, you want to leave when you can still walk out the front door and not be carried out the back door. And I've said, whatever your interest may be, whatever issue you want to focus on in Congress, in the Senate, if you stick around a couple terms, your minor is going to be aging. You can see it, you can observe it, and you have to make that choice, that decision. I've made mine.
And I respect it. I think that he's making a good decision. I think 80 is old. I think he stayed probably too long. My problem, and I hesitate to say that because I respect his decision. He totally seems with it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that he hasn't done this because I'm making a huge assumption here. But it's not as if he's saying, and this is the person I'm endorsing to replace me. That's young, that's vital. Who have you trained? Who's up and coming? Who of the younger generation? That's the problem with the Democratic Party, is that, at least this is my opinion, because I'm not hearing names, right? Who besides Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, right? And now David Hogg is grabbing all of these headlines. We mentioned it last week, and now he's being, getting headlines and ultimatums from the DNC about what are you going to do, because he wants to back all of these safe seats and put in people that are actually going to challenge the Democratic Party and these candidates. That he wants to shake things up because these long-standing older politicians within the Democratic Party, in my opinion, or at least I don't see it, are not training, are not guiding, right? They're not bringing up the next generation. They've been holding on to these seats for whatever reason, whether it's politics, whether it's money, whether it's ego, and they're not reading the room, and they're not evolving, and they're not seeing what the younger generation needs. They act like they do. Oh, we care about climate change. We care, and you watch these videos, Kim, of them in these, Senate hearings or congressional hearings, interviewing people like Mark Zuckerberg. And they don't, and I'm not just talking about Democrats, but politicians asking these asinine questions. They don't even know what they're talking about, right? And it's like, and their staff members are probably dying inside because they're 20, 30 somethings. They're like, God, read the notes that I gave you. Those are the people. That's our problem. And that's where we need to put our money and our inspiration into. But if we're not training these people, they're not prepared. They're not prepared to fight the Republican Party in the game that they have to play.
You can make the argument that there are people that are, in their late 20s in Congress, and there are people that are in their 80s in Congress. Right. And that everyone in America deserves to be represented in Congress. So I get that. And I get that argument. Back to what you're talking about, David Hogg, and his desire to remake the Democratic Party after a big loss to Donald Trump, is how do we move forward? How do we shake things up so that we have these people that are passionate and hungry and want and hungry for change to make a difference, and that those are the people that are in these offices, not someone who's 80, who's a career politician, who's never going to be voted out, and who's just kind of languishing perhaps in that office instead of shaking things up and making change. And he referenced Bernie Sanders. This is a guy who's shaking it up and making change. There are other Democrats who aren't. Spending money, though, to beat the Democrats who are already in these offices, instead of focusing all the money that, and I just got another letter from the DNC. Listen, fundraising is tight, they say. People aren't giving money as much, and we're in trouble for the midterms unless people start ponying up cash. Is focusing on defeating Democrats that have name recognition and who are easy wins in these districts, is that the right way to spend money, or is it spending money against Republicans? Is it more important to do a complete revamp and remake of the Democratic Party than it is to focus on seats to flip and win?
Well, you just mentioned two things. People aren't donating to the DNC, and those are safe seats. But what if you had somebody challenging a safe seat that actually inspired people to donate? I mean, and we talked about this last week, and David Hogg has been told by the DNC, because again, he's on the Democratic National Committee, right? He's part of it, and he said he's vice chair. You can either be part of the DNC or you can be part of this committee that's I forget what the name of it's called.
The primary committee or whatever it is.
Or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
And saying you could do that. Leaders We Deserve. That's what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
That he co-founded. And they're like, you could do that as well, but you can't do both.
Yeah.
You need to choose your side. And so they're telling him basically within the week, you need to choose which side you're on. You can be a neutral arbiter is what they're saying, or you can challenge incumbents, but you can't do both. And I don't know what David Hogg's going to choose.
David Hogg is 25. He was a victim of one of the mass school shootings. I think it was Parkland. So there are a lot of reasons for David Hogg to want change, and change that is not happening.
Right.
So I get the passion there. But in another way, I disagree that the Democratic Party needs to be remade. I think we know who we are. And I think we know what we stand for.
Okay, who are we? If you had to describe the Democratic Party, not only describe the Democratic Party, but if you had to put a face, that would be the face.
I'm going to leave it to my friend Pete Buttigieg, who was on a podcast and talked about...
I know. I just listened to this today, but okay, go ahead.
This is the Democratic Party. For anyone that has a question, Gavin Newsom, of who we are, of what we want, here's what we are, here's who we are, and here's what we want.
I want everyday life to be better.
That's what they want too.
You get up in the morning. Yeah, but importantly, like all the controversies are over what that's like. Like I want you to be able to get up in the morning and the first thing you do is you commute to work, and by the way, if you're on an EV, I want that to be affordable for you, or if you're on public transit, not to get back into the subway situation, but I want you to have good public transit to get to where you're going. And then when you get to that job, I want you to be paid well. And if you're about to have a kid, I want you to know that you're going to have parental leave when you have that kid. And if you don't want to have a kid, I want you to have the right to choose whether to have a kid, which means access to birth control and abortion and those things that give you the freedom to decide on that. And if you already have a kid, when you pick them up at school, I want that school to be good, not having its funding slashed while they set fire to the Department of Education. And then when you get home, I want you to be in a neighborhood that is safe and where you can breathe the air, because we didn't let them get rid of the Clean Air Act. And you don't have to think for one moment about whether the air you breathe or the water you drink is clean and clear, which actually takes a lot, because it means the government has to constrain those actors that would make you unfree by polluting the air and polluting the water. And then when you go to bed, I want you to know that your family's going to be fine, even if it's family like mine, despite there being some Supreme Court justice who wants to obliterate your family because it doesn't match his interpretation of his religion. Like, that's the life I want everybody to be able to live.
Yeah, I think we can deliver that.
I love him. I literally just saw that right before the game. The show.
Gavin Newsom doesn't know who we are. Please listen to Pete Buttigieg, because
I know,
that's who we are. We're environmentalists. We believe in clean air and water. We believe in freedom of choice. Yes, yes to all of this.
Yes, all of that. Yes, I know, but we need more Pete. We need more Pete, right? And I love that you played that. That's 100%. I completely agree with you. But how do we get there? How do we get that message to all 50 states, right? In a way that they understand without it being muddied by this Trump machine. That's the problem. And that's what I think the Democratic Party has a problem with. And again, not to go back to Kamala Harris, but I felt like we had good messaging, and I don't know what happened. That's our problem. I feel we have Pete. It seems clear, right? Then I don't know if we get too aspirational, if we get too full of ourselves. I don't know what happens.
Fear won
but
over
we
hope.
Lose it somewhere.
That's what happened. Fear won over hope. Americans picked fear over hope. Fear of people who are different. Fear of being overrun by the immigrants. Fear of not having enough money. They stoked the fear of transgender, all four of them. Right? Fear of, I understand what you're saying. Fear of everything that's different. Won over hope and common sense. And that's disillusioning to me. Yeah.
I know, but I guess what I'm saying, and why I keep going back to David Hogg and this revamping of the Democratic Party, is I guess it's a revamping of how we message ourselves. Sure. I'm inspired by Bernie Sanders and AOC. I'm inspired by the fact that they go to these red states and they're drawing these crowds. I think we have to get out of our own way sometimes. I think we put ourselves, because and I hate to say this because I'm going to do exactly what I'm telling that we shouldn't do. I think we put ourselves on this pedestal of we're right. We shouldn't discriminate against the LGBTQ community. We should be, protecting the environment. Climate change is real, right? Like we put ourselves on this pedestal of we're on the right side of history and Donald Trump is a complete asshole racist. And because of that, we ignore, I think, we put these blinders on of people's concerns, right? And then they don't like us anymore. And they think that we're uppity or we're ignoring them. And then the hate and the fear and they're not listening to us takes over. Yeah. And that's what we need to come to terms with. And we need to fix that for some reason. And we need to stay on the actual issue message, which is what Pete did right there, right? He didn't talk about hope and change and these big ideas. He talked about going home, going to school, all of those things, the actual day-to-day things
under Democrats,
that we need to do.
Here's what your life will look like.
Right. Right.
Here's the basics. When you get down to it, here's how the Democratic policies affect you.
Right.
And you should want this. You should want freedom to choose. You should want freedom to breathe clean air and drink clean water.
And it's going to take government. It's going to take some government to do that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I love him though. I mean, I just adore him. He's so good. And he's so, I'm loving the beard. I mean, I'm loving the little scratchy beard there. I mean, he's looking pretty good.
He left he is not batting for your team, Nikki.
I know. I can still like it though. Come on.
He looks pretty good too. Yeah. Well, now that he's out of a job, right? He's no longer the transportation secretary because Trump.
Chasten's like, hey,
maybe he's got a little downtime going on. He's got time to grow a little beard and have a little scruff. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't know. I think that he's so good at talking to middle America, and he's so good at talking about the issues in a way that doesn't seem combative. And I don't want to use the word uppity, but kind of democratic uppity, like, ugh, those Republicans, you know what I mean? And I hate to say it, even though I know he is a gay man, but he's a white man and he's a veteran. And he's got at least those two things going for him. Is him being gay going to hurt him?
Yes.
But I think that he could be I think for middle America, I think he could be the red, deep South Republicans' gay friend. You know what I mean? He's like, well, now I have a gay friend. I think so. I think he could turn some of them. That's what I'm saying. I think he could turn some of them.
In two cases, we had a better candidate than Donald Trump. Wildly better. Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris.
But she was so hated. Hillary Clinton had decades of people hating her.
Smarter.
Come on.
And she was more experienced.
Of course.
And she was more
but people
educated,
did not like her.
And she understood international affairs.
I completely agree with you.
She was hands down the better candidate, even if you thought her voice was shrill and you didn't like a pantsuit.
But people didn't like her from decades ago, sweetie. It doesn't matter. They didn't like her.
Obviously sexist. America wasn't ready for a woman in the Oval Office. Got it. We got it with Hillary. We got it with Kamala Harris. And so is America ready for a gay person, man or woman, as president? And I think there's a giant question mark. I think there's a humongous segment of America that are bigoted against gay people. That don't like that we have equality in gay marriage, that, even though most of us know someone who's gay, love someone who's gay, they're not ready for it, just like they're not ready for a woman. And so if we cast our lot with a woman or a gay person, that's another big if.
So what, you think he should be the vice presidential choice?
I hate to say it because it makes me as much of a bigot as the people that are that wouldn't vote for them just because they're a gender or their sexuality. But if we cast our lot with a woman again, or a gay man, or anyone who's an other. I don't know how Barack Obama pulled it off. Thank God he did. But I feel like there's too much at stake to have a question mark. Do we need another white dude who's straight with a family? Maybe. If you want to play their game, fine. Play their game.
So who would you choose? Bernie?
No.
I mean, I don't think that Bernie's not going to run again. He's already said, I don't think Bernie wants to run again.
No.
I think he wants to throw his support behind someone. Bernie does not want to run again. I think Bernie knows his age is going to be a factor.
Yeah.
I think he can. I don't think that he's not with it enough, but I think Bernie's going to read the room and that age is going to come up over and over and over. I think Bernie wants to definitely throw his support behind someone 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah,
says,
exactly.
You're not a bigot, you just want to make sure we win. Yes, Kevin, but I hate myself for it.
I know.
Because
It sucks that America's like that. Yeah.
I love Pete Buttigieg. I love his message. I think he would be an amazing president. He would be, I would gladly march down to the polls and cast the biggest, gayest vote that I've ever cast in my life.
I think that he could win, but maybe that's my Pollyanna-ish. I know I have to get out of California sometimes. I'm driving across country this summer. I think I'm going to learn a hell of a lot this summer.
You are too. I've been through this too many times now. You know, how many times do you have to get slapped down before you realize that America's not voting for your gender? I was so depressed when Hillary Clinton lost because I felt it. I felt like, as a woman, I felt the weight of the discrimination that night.
Yeah.
And my husband disagreed. It's like, no, it wasn't just because she was a woman. No.
Oh yeah, it was totally because she was a woman.
Yeah. Don't tell me any other reason. You insult my intelligence to tell me anything else.
Oh no, it was totally. There is no effing way that Donald Trump won that presidency.
Whatever. Like, don't talk to me.
I was crying. I mean, I've never cried over an election. I cried over that one. That was insane.
Then Kamala Harris had me believing. I thought, listen, we know what Trump is like. We know what he's saying.
No way he would get it again.
There's no way he would get it again. We're finally going to have our first female president. And I thought,
our country failed us again.
Don't be too hasty, Kim. Don't put your heart in this race because you're going to get it slapped down again. And so I held back a little bit. And thank goodness, because here we are, we get slapped down again. And I think if I cast my lot with Pete Buttigieg, no matter how much I love that man, and I love his message, and I love his amazing ability to speak and to put things in these terms that are so incredible. Remember, we've played this clip before when he talked about how there's no such thing as late-term abortion because there's already a crib in the room and the baby already has a name. On the nursery wall, there's already a sign and a plaque with the kid's name, right? It's only because something horrible happened.
Exactly.
Something you never want to happen.
Framed it exactly right.
Said it, and no one else had said it that way. He's incredible and kind and magnificent and would make the most amazing president. And I just can't say he's my guy because I'm afraid that America is full of bigots and we will lose. So there you go. Yeah.
Harry, thank you so much for the $10 donation, by the way. He says, I love this show. Thanks. I love you too, Harry. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I still think that he can win. I don't know. I'm just going to hold on to it. I still do. I still do. I don't know why. I just still do. I just do. He's so, I just do. Because he got me. I could still remember, and I say this every time we talk about Pete. I know exactly where I was driving the moment I heard him speak for the very first time. And sometimes I'm one of those people that, there's a reason why I remember the first time I ever heard him speak. I remember the first time I heard Barack Obama speak. So maybe it means something. I'm kind of one of those people. So maybe Pete will be our next president.
I like the way you think. I'm going with that. And if that happens, we can circle back around.
Go back to this. Exactly.
I will be celebrating with you. I will
raising hella glasses.
Margaritas, which are now empty because I needed them. And I will gladly eat crow.
Exactly.
Eat it. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have another story that's shocking. That's totally not related to politics at all, but kind of related to organizations that you put a lot of stock into, and then they shock the crap out of you.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if you were shocked by this, but I was, and I'm like, really? So the LA Innocence Project is reopening the Scott Peterson case. I'm going to play a little bit of the ABC 7 thing. And I know this came out a day or two ago. You guys tell me in the comments if you were shocked by this as I play a little bit of this video, but I don't know. Does it change your guys' mind?
The prosecution's case was based on circumstantial evidence and bluntly states no direct physical or forensic evidence was found supporting any part of the prosecution's theory or otherwise implicating Peterson. John Sonigo was board president of the LA Innocence Project.
Well, we do believe that the evidence that we are producing in this particular filing should lead to his exoneration and proof of his innocence.
The Innocence Project says they have new evidence a burglary committed across the street from the Petersons' home was committed on the same day Lacey disappeared, Christmas Eve 2002, not 2 days later, as the jury heard at trial. They also have a new witness who claims to have seen Lacey confront the burglars in that van after Scott Peterson left for a fishing trip that morning, and new evidence of blood found on a mattress in the van after it was set on fire at a nearby airfield. A sample from the mattress tested for male blood, no person identified. The Innocence Project wants further testing.
This is a bombshell piece of litigation. I see this as potentially turning the tides for Scott Peterson.
Former prosecutor Stephen Clark is especially impressed by new scientific evidence on baby Connor's gestational age. At trial, a prosecution expert said he based his study on 20-year-old technology and estimated Connor died on December 23rd, putting the spotlight on Scott Peterson because the couple was alone that night. But according to the filing, new scientific methods find that baby Connor died between December 28th and January 5th, quote, on a date Peterson could not have committed the crimes.
And then the second thing they showed is that the tide evidence pointing to Scott Peterson dumping Lacey in the bay where he went fishing is completely wrong.
The Innocence Project's new expert testimony shows that Lacey's body was most likely dumped from the Albany Bulb, where the water is accessible by car and foot. The filing also includes a detailed 126-page statement from Scott Peterson addressing the evidence that brought his conviction. He said, "I had absolutely nothing to do with the disappearance and deaths of my wife."
Obviously, we know that. Okay, so can you imagine him being innocent?
No. We knew about the robbery across the street.
We did know about that. But
That
the
was
new,
old
this is
news.
the scientific, the new science is what is shocking
Sure.
to me.
They want the blood in the van tested. Fine, test it. But I just knowing everything I know, having gone through that whole trial, reported on it
Exactly.
the whole time, I just don't believe it's true. His reactions to things,
Exactly.
his
The
whole call
affair,
with
the
Amber
phone
Fry,
call. Yes.
talking about, his wife and making up
Saying
stories.
she's already dead. Saying
Yeah.
his wife was already dead.
Yeah.
Like
And
that, all
I'm
of those
sorry.
things.
I don't buy the LA Innocence Project for a moment. And it's different than the Innocence Project. The LA Innocence Project is a different group of people. And
Oh,
I
okay. Thank
might
you.
put more stock in it if it was the real Innocence Project.
Okay,
But
thank you for clarifying, because maybe
mm-mm.
maybe I'm thinking the same thing. Okay, maybe I was confused.
No, maybe. Perhaps. If there's new technology that sheds new light, bring it. I don't want anyone in jail who's there unjustly. Go ahead. I, unlike Trump and company, who don't want to spend the time in court to find out the truth, I
Right.
say, sure, find out the truth. Let's run the test. If you want to go back to court, run the test, reopen the case. There's new science, there's new DNA technology, whatever. Then fine, do that. Don't throw out all the other evidence that's
Of course
involved in
not.
this
Of
case.
course not.
My opinion, just having followed the case closely,
Thank
yeah,
you.
guilty as sin.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
maybe they are just doing it for clicks.
Mhm.
Nobody's buying it. Thank you for clearing up the LA versus the Innocence Project. I thought
Mhm.
they were connected, but yeah, I just Googled it. They are separate. Same goal, but separate.
Right.
They just want to get people off guilty or not. I would hope that they wouldn't. They obviously have to prove it in the courts no matter what, right? I mean, having them reopen the case, they still have to have the evidence to prove it. But just like Kim mentioned, the phone call, Amber Fry, all of these different things. Of course, Scott Peterson's going to say, I would never do it. I'm not a violent person. That doesn't prove anything to me. I do think, though, if they test the stuff, I'm just going to say this. Just going down that road, although I think it's highly unlikely, if he is, that will be the biggest bombshell I think that I've ever, because I know exactly where I was in the newsroom when
Yeah.
that story broke. If he
Mhm.
actually was, I would lose my mind. I would absolutely lose my mind if they actually found concrete, no circumstantial, concrete evidence that it was not him. No ifs, ands, or buts, no question whatsoever. I would absolutely lose my mind. I would be like, oh my God. But I still think that, yeah.
My sister was a baby reporter for a station in Reading, KRCR.
Right.
And she was a reporter. You had to carry your own camera and do the reporting at the same time. Like, it's when you're
multimedia journalist. Yeah.
Yes. And one of the first stories she sent on is the disappearance of Laci Peterson. And she's standing right next to Scott Peterson. This is when his wife was still missing. And he was like, if anyone knows where she is, please help me find her. This is the moments, right? The kind of the first few days and weeks of her disappearance. And they took this, they call it B-roll, which is every time there's a Scott Peterson story, flashback to old cuts and images of him at the beginning of the disappearance and then on through the case. And she's standing right next to him. And I'll never forget, she called me and she goes, this guy totally did it. She goes, the hair on the back of my neck stood up. She goes, standing next to him was super creepy. I got the weirdest vibe from this guy. He goes, she said, he's not acting right. He's not acting right. Now, we all act in ways maybe when
exactly.
Right. But I believe her when she says there's something off with this person. And now in every single Scott Peterson story, they play that tape, and there's my sister standing right
really? Oh, that's kind of cool.
Every single time, and I'm like, get away from my sister. Yeah.
That's actually pretty cool. Yeah, I remember I was working in my first radio gig when that verdict was handed down. I mean, and it was just a complete circus. But it's one of those things where it's besides the O.J. Simpson trial and all that sort of stuff. I remember when it first broke, my initial thought before the Amber Fry, and obviously when you heard first about Amber Fry, I was thinking, God, it would suck. Men have affairs all of the time.
Yeah.
It would suck to be having an affair and then something happened to your wife, because instantly they would think that you did it. But at the same time, anybody that works in news knows, well, if something happens to the wife, let's just say, dollars to donuts, it's the boyfriend or the husband. Most of the time it is. Yeah. I'm sorry, it is.
I know.
It's most of the time it's somebody you know. It's right. I mean, yes, women get, kidnapped off the street or whatever. Like those things obviously happen. We know that they happen. But if it's something like this, I would just be shocked if this actually came out that it wasn't Scott Peterson. I just.
John S. reminds us the Innocence Project, not the LA Innocence Project, the Innocence Project, has saved some lives and gotten a lot of innocent people out of prison after DNA proved that they were innocent. When some were convicted, DNA wasn't available. I agree. I say, if there's new technology, if there's new evidence, come forward.
Right.
Nobody wants someone in jail that doesn't belong there.
No, exactly.
Ahead. This is
America,
and that's why, right?
And that's why that's why the science coming forward, I was shocked. I was actually shocked. But that guy coming on and saying we're going to get him exonerated. Yeah. I was like, seriously? I thought, okay, let's open up the case. Let's try it. Let's test it. But he seemed so sure that it was going to get him off. I was like, I mean, you seem pretty confident.
It's interesting that a former prosecutor said that. That was an interesting piece of video.
Exactly.
Kudos to my friend Dan Noyes at ABC7 for that. But I just am not buying what they're selling.
I just think that it's definitely going to be one of those things where we'll see what happens. So obviously they're going to retest it and we'll see what happens. Okay, let's end on a lighter note though, not a murder that happened a long time ago. I want to show you this video that went viral, and I'm sorry I don't have it available. And we're kind of talking a little bit about sexism, okay? Men versus women, and also journalism, okay? Now, there was this Braves reporter, and he was doing this live report in the stands, okay? He was at a game. What game was it? It was, I want to bring it up. I want to be out. Okay, so it was a FanDuel Sports Network reporter, and he was at an Atlanta Braves game. and it was against the Toronto Blue Jays. Okay. The reporter's name was Wiley Ballard. Okay. Now he's on the rooftop patio of the Toronto's Rogers Center, and he was standing with a pair of female fans who identified themselves as Lauren and Kayla, pardon me. I'm going to show you the video. Now, I want to preface this by saying he has the, the sports play-by-play guys, they're in his ear and he's on camera. And so there is a bit of pressure. So I will give him this. I'm going to play this for you, and I want you to tell me if you think what he did and said was appropriate. Okay. So here we go. I'm just going to play it raw for you. You tell me. I don't know if you heard it there because it's a little low, and I'm sorry if you can't hear it. Yeah. So basically the guys in the booth are saying you have an inning or two to get their numbers. Okay. Yeah. So he's on camera and he's asking for their numbers. It goes back, and I'm going to play it for you. Number. So hold on. I'm going to fast forward it a little bit. And he's actually on number. Now, I'm just going to ask you, if that was a female reporter doing the exact same thing, do you think that everybody would think that it was cute?
No, female
because
reporter
this is the
wouldn't
thing.
have done that. Because when you're a female reporter, you're judged, and you're judged for everything. People already look at you as, is she sexy enough? Is she too sexy? Is her hair right? Is her body right? She's being judged all 6 ways from Sunday on how she looks and how she presents herself. And the last thing that a female reporter would do is diminish her credibility by asking for a phone number.
Exactly.
In this case, it's nudge, nudge, elbow, elbow. You got an inning to get their phone number. And he just went over the line and took it too seriously. And that's unprofessional.
Exactly. And I just feel like, obviously, there's always a double standard between men and women in all kinds of settings. Remember when Elon Musk was he gets to wear a t-shirt and everything, and then even between men and
It's Vladimir Zelensky.
Thank you. Zelensky was being vilified for wearing just a khaki shirt because his country's at war, right? He was being vilified for what he wears, but Elon Musk can basically wear whatever he wants. And then I don't know if I don't have the picture. I apologize. The media pool, this guy named Tim Pool, I think his name is. He's a podcaster, and now apparently he's let in to the White House press room. He was wearing a freaking beanie. A beanie in the press room.
But he asked the right questions, which is, Supreme Dear Leader, tell me how great you are, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you wear as long as you bend a knee to Trump and ask the questions that make him look good that he likes to answer. That's okay.
I could not imagine. He asked the most asinine question. Oh, I mean, the fact that he was criticizing the media in which he thinks that is going to accept him, which they're not. He's not a journalist. They're not journalists. And I'm not trying to, we were talking about putting yourselves on pedestals. I just do think that if you're going to be covering the president of the United States, you should have a journalism degree. I think that, and I know the people are going to be like, oh, it's fake news. They're feeding you this liberal crap. There's things you learn in journalism school beyond whatever slant you think. And the fact that they didn't go through it tells you everything you need to know about the fact that they didn't go through it. And I was flabbergasted that he was getting this first question. And Carolyn Levitt was like, thank you for that question. And I'm just putting my head. I'm like, it's an embarrassment. It is an absolute embarrassment. But of course, if a woman had shown up in a t-shirt, let's say, not even a beanie, in a t-shirt to ask that kind of question, oh, she would have been vilified. Fox News would have had it as like breaking news that, the Democratic Party had some sort of, tramp questioning their dear leader in some sort of trashy outfit. And it would have been absolutely ridiculous.
I hope that most of America doesn't take these people that call themselves journalists seriously. They're propagandists. And the truth is, a real journalist knows you have a certain number of seconds to ask a question that is effective and of note to the American people. And you cannot waste your time asking a question that is of no service or of no good.
There was no question in this question anyway. Can you talk? He says, I'm wondering if you could comment on the unprofessional behavior of the other media, as well as elaborate if there's any plans to expand access to new companies. What are you talking about? Like,
So
you have an opportunity to ask the White House press secretary anything you want, and you lick their boots.
Right.
That's why you don't belong in there. That's why you don't belong in there.
Right.
Like,
and we have, with the addition of these bloggers and podcasters and YouTubers and whomever else, right, that don't understand journalism, we have now the new creation of what looks to be a state media. These people who are welcomed solely because they are promoting the message of the president and the administration.
exactly.
Right? That's what they do. That's their whole point. That's not journalism. Journalism is helping to keep the electorate informed, is seeking the truth.
And to keep them in check, not to freaking, prop them up and to spread their propaganda. It is to hold their feet to the fire. It's to be like, can you explain this? Not to bash on the media, to question them about what they're doing. Who gives a shit what they're doing? Why do you care? Do you think you're hurting the media? Ooh, the media could give two rats' asses about you criticizing how mean they are. They don't have a story on it.
They know what they're doing. Absolutely. It's funny. I had a very similar conversation today with Gil Gross, who echoes the same thing. He's like, these aren't journalists, and people use the term journalist way too loosely now.
Exactly. It's so, and what's annoying is I understand that, with the internet and people can create their own websites, and I understand that people do go out and cover stories on their own for their own websites, and they do get information, and I'm not saying that they don't, but there's a big difference when you don't hold yourself to a journalistic standard. And if you get the information wrong, you don't give a shit, right? Like, I'm not going to correct that. I'm not going to call myself out on it, right? There's no guardrails for you. That's the difference. There's a difference between a blogger and the New York friggin' Times.
Right.
And nobody seems to understand that anymore. And that's what bothers me about Tim Pool, this podcaster who could give again a rat's ass if he gets anything wrong, right? And something like the New York Times, and for Donald Trump to not know the friggin' difference and to hold a seat in the White House press room, rotating the Associated Press as if they're in the same friggin' league.
Nope.
It blows my mind. Blows my mind and tells me all I need to. It is absolutely crazy.
Well, and you hear what happens when they get asked a real question by Caitlin Collins at CNN.
Oh, yeah. Well, they get all testy. How dare you ask me a question?
How dare you ask me a question? How dare you hold me accountable?
Oh, my God.
How dare you ask me something that I could actually, that could make me look bad, or that I actually have to tap dance around, or how, that I have to spin. How dare you ask me something,
so mad.
That is true, or that actually needs asking. Right.
That needs an answer to. Like, what are you talking about? Can you prove that? Can we get an answer of why you did that? Or explain why Donald Trump is actually lying about the price of eggs, or these numbers don't match up? Justify the actions that this White House is taking. Now, you're being mean. That's fake news. Like, it's a lying, and we're going to have another 4 years of this nonsense, but welcome to America. We get what we voted for. And but anyways, I thought it was really funny. Not funny, but Harry, thank you for the other $10 donation. I love you guys for being here. I have to go to my very last middle school open house right now. So thank you guys all for being here. And Harry, thank you for the 2 donations. We have other things to give as well.
He said this show is twice
as good as I originally thought. You're the best, Harry. And he says, damn, I love this show. Thank you. Thank you.
A flow message for Dylan. So nice.
Thank you guys for the $5 donation flow. Thank you. You guys can always donate, even if you listen on the replay, as always. And you do. And I do. I go back and I thank you all for the donations. And so many of you do go and donate to the show. And thank you so much for supporting. We are 100% crowdfunded. And we love it, because we are here for you. We are here for you. And we love being here every Thursday night. And if you could be here live, it's fun ass show. So yeah, go to our PayPal.
And we're also here for the cocktails.
Exactly. Well, Kim's here for a double fist in the cocktails.
There you go.
PayPal, Patreon, all the ways to support are in the show notes. Also, a delicious way to support the show is Auntie Tabby's Island Flavor Barbecue Sauce. Just go to auntietabbies.com, use the coupon code NickKim, and you get 10% off every single time you order. The guava barbecue sauce, I am telling you guys, summer is around the corner. Springtime is perfect for barbecuing as well. It is delicious on all kinds of meat, fish, chicken nuggets, whatever you want to put it on. So go to auntietabbies.com and don't forget to use the coupon code NickKim for 10% off every single time you order. All right, you guys, we will be back here next Thursday, 5 o'clock, with our cocktails and more nonsense that's happening in the world. But I love you guys. Thank you so much. Mwah. Love ya.
Nikki, you're all so awesome. Miss Brown, like a beautiful blossom. You're also the best. I really can't rest. You're all so awesome.
Wow. Okay.